All right. Hello. Welcome back to another Classic Comics live stream. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and get into it here. This should be a pretty short stream tonight. Uh, Although it seems like I say that every week and it still winds up going an hour or so. Okay, so probably the big news this week has been the Acolyte and the news surrounding that. Of course, apparently in the third episode of this show, they redefine the Force, and it is going to, surprise, be more female centered. Now, I did find this article that seems to kind of address some of this stuff. This is from Screen Rant, and this is from a couple of weeks ago. So, Jodie Turner Smith reveals secrets of Star Wars' new Force cult, feared by the Jedi. All right, so Star Wars, The Acolyte's mother, Anastasia actress Jodie Turner Smith, revealed brand new details about Star Wars' newest Force cult in an exclusive interview with Screen Rant. Updates on The Acolyte have already suggested that it will be one of the most thrilling of Star Wars' upcoming TV shows. Uh huh. Set 100 years before Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, The Acolyte will explore the High Republic era, undoubtedly unveiling secrets of the Jedi, the Republic, and the Sith. Now, however, Turner Smith has indicated that Star Wars' newest coven of witches will also be major players in this area. In fact, according to Mother Anastasia actress Jodie Turner Smith, this coven is feared by the Jedi themselves, who believe the witches' Force abilities pose a threat. Speaking speaking exclusively with Screen Rant, Turner Smith explained, quote, I wouldn't compare them to the Night Sisters. If you don't know, the Night Sisters, they're from this planet called Dathomir. They appeared in the Clone Wars TV series, and they're basically this group of females who practice some kind of magic. It's never been really clear to me. I think it's something different from the Force, I think, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't compare them to the Night Sisters. I think it's best not to, and to just walk in with an open mind about who they are. But basically, Mother Anastasia has created a community on the planet of Brindok for this coven of witches. We are existing in a time where, according to the Jedi, the power that we have to manipulate the Force is to be feared and wrong. We are, by annexing ourselves on Brindok in resistance to that idea. I want to say it in that way because it's not like we're sitting here being like, we want to fight Jedi. We don't. We want to live in peace, and we want to find a place where we are not persecuted for possessing powers that we feel are natural to us and that we should have, and that we don't need to be Jedi in order to have. But perhaps the establishment can find our existence, just like anything that exists outside of the binary, threatening. And that is what makes it so dangerous for us, for a Jedi to come across our paths outside the binary. That's real subtle. This update from Turner Smith is absolutely fascinating, suggesting that the Acolyte will introduce Force sensitive beings who don't fit into any other category of Force users in Star Wars movies and TV shows. Turner Smith's comments about this new coven of Force sensitive witches. Hold on. Suggests that it will be unlike anything Star Wars has shown before, falling outside the binary of the light and dark side of the Force. To a certain extent, this was also true of the Night Sisters of Dathomir, who weren't aligned with the Jedi or Sith. However, Turner Smith was also clear that the Acolytes' witches shouldn't be compared to the Night Sisters. Instead, they are something else entirely. Yeah, I just read that. And in the extended universe, in the books, over the years, they've introduced a number of different Force disciplines, basically different cultures that have different interpretations of the Force that don't involve the Jedi or the Sith. So I mean, I don't know how many there are, but I think there's at least 6 or so I think I remember knowing about. So it's not like this idea of Force users who aren't aligned with the Sith or Jedi a new thing, despite what they may make you think. Star Wars has become more flexible and creative with the rules and definition of the Force since the original trilogy. Yes, in A New Hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi explained the Force was in all things, but it nevertheless seemed like a power wielded only by the Jedi and Sith. This dichotomy also implied there are only two sides of the Force, light and dark. The Phantom Menace then added to this understanding, explaining to the Chosen One that according to the Chosen One prophecy, Anakin was meant to bring balance to the Force. However, TV shows such as Star Wars The Clone Wars and Ahsoka have expanded the rules of the Force even more, with the Clone Wars introducing the Night Sisters and Ahsoka presenting the Force as something anyone can learn and wield, regardless of their natural aptitude. This acolyte, or the acolyte, seemed primed to build upon this history with Mother Anastaea's coven of witches. Indeed, it isn't clear whether the witches will tap into the light side, dark side, or something else entirely. Moreover, it's intriguing that the Jedi seem afraid of and are strongly opposed to the witch's ability to wield this power, suggesting a defensiveness that doesn't cast the Jedi in the most positive light. And I'm sure that's still deliberate. Given the Acolyte's place in the Star Wars timeline, the show will likely uncover the cracks in the Jedi Order that led to its eventual fall, and this may be one such crack. Although Star Wars: The Acolyte undoubtedly has many more secrets to reveal, this insight from Jodie Turner-Smith offers a sneak peek into Star Wars' fascinating new coven of witches. So, yeah. And I haven't watched the show. I don't have Disney Plus, but I've certainly read several or watched several videos reviewing it, and I think I have a pretty general gist of what it's about. And it seems pretty much that this is, and as with pretty much everything that is being done by Disney and by Hollywood in general these days, this is yet another sort of feminist uh, allegory, yet another uh, girl power, girl boss story. The Leslie Headland, the one who is running the show, she is, uh, she's a lesbian. She's got a lesbian wife, blah, blah, blah. And this seems like a pretty clear sort of allegory of the Jedi representing the patriarchy and these witches, whoever, whatever they are, representing, women, homosexuals, trans, just take your pick. And yeah, I mean, I have no interest in it, but I'm sure there's some people who will like it. I don't know who. But speaking of people liking it or not liking it, let me go ahead and go to my next story here. And this is from Forbes. The Acolyte has the lowest Star Wars audience scores since the holiday special. You can picture me beginning this article with a very long sigh because, well, here we go again. Despite extremely positive critic reviews overall, The Acolyte has managed to put up the lowest audience scores in the entire history of the Star Wars franchise, save one classic failure. It's lower than every movie, every show, except for one, the infamous Star Wars Holiday Special from 1978. You want to see it? Here it is, ranked by audience score with critics next to it. Okay, so I'll just go with the audience score because, I mean, who cares about the critic score? And I'm guessing this is coming from Rotten Tomatoes, right? These are probably Rotten Tomatoes scores. Empire Strikes Back 97 is at the top of the list. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but at the bottom at number 23, the holiday special with a 20% audience score and a 25% critic score. And then number 22, The Acolyte with a 33% audience score and a 93% critic score. Now, this is early. This thing's only been out, what, a week or two at the most. But generally, these scores tend to go down after they initially come out. So you would expect, in particular, the audience score to drop even more. Will it get lower than the holiday special? I don't know. Probably not. And I don't expect the critics score to come down a whole lot, maybe a little, but I mean, look at that difference, 60-point difference from the audience to the critics. And I'm sure if you go through this list, you'll see a lot of that, particularly when it comes to more recent stuff. Because Phantom Menace, I mean, that's pretty close, pretty even. Attack of the Clones, pretty close. Book of Boba Fett isn't even that off. But Star Wars Resistance, 47 audience, 92 critic score. Last Jedi, 41% audience score, 91 critic score. Clone Wars movie, I guess that's the animated one, not Attack of the Clones. 40% audience, 19% critics. Ouch. I'm guessing that's the Tartakovsky one, right? So no big surprise there. So yeah, what to make of this? The list here is all over the place as it's very hard where to predict how Star Wars projects will shake out in the minds of fans. Obviously, the OG trilogy is at the top, and the beloved Clone Wars soon after. Despite the supposed hate for the Disney sequel trilogy, it actually scores pretty well among audiences, minus, of course, the massive, infamous divide between fans and critics for Rian Johnson's Last Jedi. But even the Acolyte has a wide split that at a 60% gap in comparison to Last Jedi's 50% gap. So what's going on? It's complicated. Yes, I know that obviously the go-to idea is review bombing and that this is a Star Wars project that stars a black woman, Amanda Stenberg. The only similar lead here would be Rosario Dawson, a woman of color leading Ahsoka, but that character is a long beloved, not brand new. Rogue One and the new sequel trilogy were led by women, Felicity Jones and Daisy Ridley, respectively, though, of course, Ridley especially got massive amounts of unjustified hate over the years. There are the usual types making outraged YouTube videos about the series, though the prime target appears to be its showrunner, Leslie Hesland, who is being deemed a fake fan and the main problem with the series. I would agree with that. Though audiences have only seen the premiere 2 episodes, not the 4 critics have. Still, I doubt anything will make up the difference. Oh, okay, yeah. So this was made even before the 3rd episode came out. So yeah, that audience score is going to come down. I wonder what it is now. Let's take a look. I'll just get Rotten Tomatoes here and see what the score is now. Come on. Let me get rid of this. Okay. Oh yeah, so it's now, let me bring this up. So now it's at 28%. Yeah. And that'll probably go down more before it's all said and done. I don't know. I don't know if they're ever going to get to a point where they're going to wake up and decide that this doesn't work, but I don't know. They seem determined. So there's yet another story related to the Acolyte you probably heard about. According to at least one person who worked on the Acolyte, it was Anakin who blew up the Death Star, not Luke Skywalker. Now, so this is coming from thatparkplace.com. Star Wars, the Acolyte star claims Anakin Skywalker blew up the Death Star and that recent Disney Star Wars shows did not feature Jedi. Okay. Star Wars, the Acolyte actor Charlie Barnett attempted to paint himself as a Star Wars fan, but came across looking completely ignorant about the franchise by claiming that Anakin Skywalker blew up the Death Star. In an interview with the Nerds of Color, Barnett's first comments were to claim that Jedi had not been featured in recent Disney Star Wars films and shows, despite them being prominently featured in the most recent series. Ahsoka, as well as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Luke Skywalker is also featured in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. He said, quote, "One of the things that was most terrifying is stepping into that position of Jedi. We haven't seen a lot of Jedi in the last couple of films or even TV shows that have been coming out. So returning to that storyline and reinvesting in it was daunting because the Jedi are these, uh, what, colonizers? Is that's probably what he was going to say. Next, he claimed that the Star Wars films that he saw portrayed the Jedi as godlike beings. He said, and from where I was going up, where I was growing up from the films that I was seeing, they were better than could be. They were the utmost and could do nothing wrong. It was this kind of godlike nature, except for completely screwing up in the or the prequel trilogy. But sure, okay. So getting to see more of the personality, seeing a little deeper root into them was terrifying. Like, how are we going to explore outlets of a story of people we've known so much about and do it in ways that people love to hear about them or see them? I mean, in the prequel trilogy, they basically completely screw up. They get completely played by Palpatine, and I mean, I guess I thought that the prequel trilogy sort of stripped away their sort of all-knowing and all-wise sort of facade pretty well. I mean, Yoda comes across, and really the Jedi Council come across as being kind of dumb. It's unclear what films he watched, but the Jedi are clearly never portrayed as godlike beings in any of the 6 films that George Lucas helmed. In the original trilogy, the Jedi have clearly been driven into exile and defeated by the Empire. In fact, Obi-Wan even informs Luke Skywalker that his father was killed by Darth Vader. Obviously, it would later be revealed his father was consumed by the dark side and became Darth Vader. Yeah, we know that. In the prequels, it's very obvious that the Jedi can do a lot wrong. Qui-Gon Jinn expresses this to Obi-Wan Kenobi repeatedly in The Phantom Menace. He is also killed by Maul at the end of the film. Yoda also makes it clear that the dark side has clouded his vision. Then in Revenge of the Sith, it's very clear that the Jedi are not all-powerful godlike beings, as they are defeated by the machinations of the Emperor, which involved their own clone troopers gunning many of them down. Despite trying to paint himself as a fan, Barnett clearly does not know what he's talking about, but later in the interview, he made an even greater faux pas. He declared that Anakin Skywalker destroyed the Death Star. When asked about his character's relation to good and evil in the show, Barnett answered in part, quote, "This good and bad element, it's so dependent on your experiences, your history, your parents, your friends. Like, so much bleeds into that, and that's what makes it, why Palpatine would be committed to the direction that he is committed to, as bad or good, however you view it. I personally will see it as bad, but a lot of people would see the sides are like, well, Anakin just killed a whole lot of just killed a whole Death Star. How many people died on that? Is that not bad? I find that part of Star Wars really human and the best at. And the best at what? That's not worded well. In a separate interview with Collider, he reiterated his belief that Anakin blew up the Death Star. When asked about his character, wait, when asked about his character, okay, I think they mean how his character reckons with the idea that good and bad are in the eyes of the beholder. Come on, proofread these things. Barnett answered in part, in my mind, it's so funny to me because it literally, as a person who's outside and just a fan coming in, was what was so beautiful and interesting to me. He continued, people have been talking to me online about how Darth Vader is such a bad person. It's very clear, it's very well established from those actions. But if you can't look and see that Anakin blowing up the Death Star, killing millions and millions of people, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this right now. After Daphne Keene tells him to shut up, he continues, what is the beauty of the story? And it's the beauty of like life. And it's not about not holding people to the fire when they do make the wrong decisions or when they are bad, but recognizing why they led to the places that they led is important. I think it's why Lucas wrote it. Maybe you could just ask him. Yeah, so not very surprising there. And, it's not like discussing the whole idea of whether Luke blowing up the Death Star was entirely right or wrong. But obviously, if he hadn't blown it up, then all the people on Yavin would have been killed. So, he made a choice. Um, but, it's the old sort of joke about, surely not everybody on the Death Star was an evil person. It's like the sort of, Kevin Smith made a joke of it in Clerks when they're talking about whether, like the janitors, were the janitors on the Death Star bad people and did they deserve to die too? But ultimately, again, it's like they were going to blow up Yavin and kill all those people. So you got to make a choice, and Luke chose them. And considering they had just blown up Alderaan and killed like way, way, way more people, then it makes it seem like, yeah, this is probably justified. Okay, and speaking of Lucas, I did find this article where he talks about the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and we'll just go over some of his comments about them right quick. And this is from CBR.com. What George Lucas said about each Disney Star Wars sequel. When George Lucas sold Lucasfilm Limited to Disney in 2012, he walked away from any chance of telling more stories in a galaxy far, far away. Although he had story treatments and ideas of his own, the Star Wars sequel trilogy was ultimately made without his involvement. Surely then Lucas had his own thoughts about the three films. Beginning with the 2015 release of The Force Awakens and ending with 2019's Rise of Skywalker, the Star Wars sequel trilogy stirred strong opinions among fans. While some praised the nostalgia fuel and return to more practical effects, others criticized the story and some of the new characters. Like, what did Lucas himself think about the sequels? Did the films faithfully continue his vision that began in 1977? Well, no, it wouldn't have. But to be fair, his sequel trilogy wouldn't have either because, his vision of it changed from when he did the original Star Wars movie. I mean, even between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, because when he did Star Wars, Vader wasn't Luke's father, and Leia wasn't his sister. That was a change that he made afterwards. Okay, so although the initial reception for The Force Awakens was generally positive, George Lucas felt differently. Quote, they wanted to do a retro movie, he told Charlie Rose in a 2015 PBS interview. I don't like that. Every movie, I worked very hard to make them different. I made them completely different. I mean, except for the Death Star being in both Star Wars and in Return of the Jedi. Different planets, different spaceships to make it new. While the film itself is generally praised as the least divisive installment of the sequel trilogy, Lucas reserved his harshest criticisms for The Force Awakens, revealing that he was disappointed by its lack of originality, sacrificing boldness for a safe and nostalgic ride down memory lane. Many fans shared his initial criticism, condemning the first installment of the sequel trilogy for essentially repeating the storyline of A New Hope. The sentiment was elaborated upon by Disney CEO Bob Iger in his 2019 memoir, The Ride of a Lifetime, in which he addressed Lucas's disappointment with The Force Awakens. After watching an early cut of the movie, Lucas expressed to Iger that there's nothing new and that there wasn't enough visual or technical leaps forward. Despite the creator's feedback, Iger and Disney proceeded with the film in much the same way as planned, ultimately disappointing Lucas with the final cut. However, that's not all the filmmaker had to say about The Force Awakens. In fact, not all of his feedback about the film was negative. During a Lifetime Achievement ceremony in 2015 at the Kennedy Center Honors, Lucas delivered a different verdict. Quote, the fans will love it, he said. It's very much the kind of movie they've been looking for, unquote. It would appear that in some way or another, Lucas recognized The Force Awakens would work for fans of his original films, even if it didn't quite work for him. To a certain extent, Lucas was correct, as the seventh film in the Skywalker saga is undoubtedly the best loved installment of the sequel trilogy. Okay, then we get to it here. Rian Johnson's Star Wars The Last Jedi was easily the most divisive installment of the sequel trilogy. However, Lucas was more positive about the 2017 film, even if his comments were more limited. One of the filmmaker's representatives said that Lucas thought The Last Jedi film was, quote, beautifully made, unquote. Okay. He even went so far as to have a conversation with Johnson, the film's writer and director. It should be noted, however, that Lucas himself hasn't spoken publicly about the movie. Ha, interesting. Lucas's apparently positive thoughts on The Last Jedi were not shared by many members of the Star Wars fan base. The film heavily divided critics and audiences. The former heavily praised The Last Jedi, and the latter claimed it had ruined the entire franchise. I'm one of those. Rian Johnson's signature style rubbed many fans the wrong way as he actively subverted the tropes that audiences had come to expect from a Star Wars movie. Perhaps the biggest point of contention, however, was the handling of Luke Skywalker's character. Many viewers, including Hamill himself, claimed The Last Jedi woefully misrepresented the hero of the original trilogy. And then The Rise of Skywalker. Lucas hasn't given any public statements, though not even through his representatives, about the final entry in the sequel trilogy, The Rise of Skywalker. Directed by J.J. Abrams, the 2019 film is the worst reviewed live action entry in the Star Wars franchise since Lucas's The Phantom Menace. However, one thing that stands out is The Rise of Skywalker contradicts Lucas's position on the status of Palpatine following the events of Return of the Jedi. According to actor Ian McDiarmid, Lucas believed the Emperor was, quote, absolutely dead, unquote. In contrast, The Rise of Skywalker revealed Palpatine not only survived the destruction of the Death Star 2, but also orchestrated the events of the sequel trilogy. Though Lucas hasn't publicly spoken about the film, the fan base has been decidedly split on The Rise of Skywalker since its release in 2019. Lucas has admitted that selling Lucasfilm was a painful experience. As part of the $4.05 billion agreement, Disney wasn't obligated to use Lucas's story treatments for his proposed Star Wars sequels, and ultimately didn't. He may not have had the highest praise for Disney's finished products, but it's easy to understand why. Spending almost 40 years developing the saga, the seeing it completed differently by someone else, must have been difficult, especially when they completely trash your story and go in a different direction. But not everything is as bad as it seems. Lucas reported by who? Reportedly, whatever that means, was very complimentary about The Mandalorian despite his initial concern about Grogu. He even visited the set of the Disney Plus series. While Lucas no longer has a say in the franchise's direction, the father of Star Wars can now easily sit back and enjoy his creation as a viewer and, most importantly, as a fan. Yeah, I'm sure he enjoys it immensely. Give me a break. Okay, so where am I at here? So 7:30. Okay. So I had another Star Wars story, but I think I've done enough of that, so I'll skip that one. Let's move on here. Okay. And this one is more, of a business sort of Hollywood related, but this is from Variety. Paramount and Skydance agree on new M&A deal terms, but Sherry Redstone hasn't approved the pact yet. Paramount Global's month-long M&A drama may soon be coming to a conclusion. The special committee established by Paramount Global's board of directors to evaluate M&A proposals has reached an agreement with David Ellison's Skydance Media and his private equity backers on the terms of a complicated deal that would merge Skydance and Paramount while keeping Paramount publicly traded, Variety has confirmed. Skydance and its partners, Redbird Capital and KKR, sweetened the original buyout offer to make it more attractive to non-voting shareholders of Paramount Global. Now, the deal awaits approval by Sherry Redstone, non-executive chair of Paramount Global, whose National Amusements Inc. owns 77% of the voting shares in Paramount Global. Redstone has not officially decided whether or not to go forward on the deal, sources said. And the terms of the Skydance NIA pact. Now, terms of the Skydance NIA part of the agreement have yet to be worked out. If she does agree, it would end her family's decades long control over the media conglomerate and its predecessor companies. The Skydance Paramount merger would not require approval by Paramount's Class B shareholders. On word of the Skydance Paramount deal potentially nearing the finish line, the price of Class B shares of Paramount Global were trading up 7.5% Monday to about $12.80 per share. That's not bad. New details of Skydance deal terms were reported earlier by the Wall Street Journal and CNBC. Reps for Skydance, Paramount Global, and the Paramount's board's special committee declined to comment. A rep for NIA said in a statement to Variety, quote, "We received the financial terms of the proposed Paramount Skydance transaction over the weekend, and we are reviewing them." Under the new offer from Skydance Redbird, KKR, Paramount Class B shareholders will now be able to sell a bit less than half of their stock for $15 per share, and the remainder of their shares will be converted into shares in the newly merged Paramount Skydance, according to sources. Hold on. Okay, the pact proposes that Skydance will acquire the shares of NIA for roughly 12 billion in cash, or sorry, 2 billion in cash, thereby assuming control of Paramount Global. Skydance would merge with Paramount, valuing Skydance at less than the previous $5 billion figure under the prior offer, at which point Skydance, Redbird, KKR would own about 2/3 of the combined Paramount Skydance. Skydance and its financial partners would also pay Paramount 1.5 billion in cash intended to go towards reducing Paramount's 14.6 billion in long-term debt. Jesus. Well, I mean, what do you say? If you had maybe made decent Star Trek, then maybe you wouldn't be so deeply in debt. But that's just me. NIA and Skydance have not agreed on which party would be responsible for defending the deal against lawsuits filed by Paramount Global shareholders, the New York Times reported Sunday. Redstone's NIA wants Skydance to provide legal protection in the event of a lawsuit, but Skydance has not agreed to that deal term, per the Times. Interesting. Paramount Global is holding its 2024 annual shareholders meeting on Tuesday, June 2nd, starting at 9 a.m. But it's unlikely a deal with Skydance will officially be a go by then. After Redstone and Skydance did not clinch a deal on Skydance's previous offer, Sony Pictures and private equity giant Apollo Global Management emerged as prospective bidders for Paramount Global, but have since backed off their $26 billion all-cash offer to buy the entire company. The Sony Apollo bid would face a number of regulatory hurdles, including requiring a separate ownership structure for CBS's owned TV stations. Hmm. Okay. All right. 7:34. Okay, so we'll do a two or three here and wrap this up. Okay, now the next story here, this comes from neuronad.com. CEO Tony Vinciquerra outlines AI-driven efficiency in filmmaking. And the name of the story here is Sony embraces AI to reduce film production costs. And I did a story about this, I believe it was last summer, about when the strikes were going on. So probably towards the end of the summer, about how Sony was looking into this, and they weren't the only one. There were others that were doing it. I think this especially came out after I think it was after Secret Invasion was released, and the show had that AI generated artwork in the credit sequence. And there were questions about AI already because it was a big point of contention in the strikes. But after that show came out with AI art in the intro, that obviously made it a much more relevant subject. Okay, Sony Pictures Entertainment is making headlines with its ambitious plans to incorporate artificial intelligence into its film production processes. CEO Tony Vinciquerra announced during an investor event that the company aims to use AI to make film and television production more efficient, potentially saving substantial costs. This bold move underscores Sony's commitment to innovative and cost effectiveness in the competitive entertainment industry. Vinciquerra didn't shy away from acknowledging the potential conflicts that would arise with creatives over AI integration. Quote, we are very focused on AI. The biggest problem with making films today is the expense, he stated. He emphasized the importance of recent and ongoing negotiations with Hollywood's labor unions, such as the IATSE and Teamsters, which will set the parameters for how far AI can be utilized in film production. The CEO's remarks come in the wake of an 8-month strike over AI last year, highlighting the sensitivity of the issue. And I think was it last week or week before I was doing the stream, and there were some stories that mentioned that I guess that set workers, a lot of the manual labor on the sets, the people who do the lighting and the sound and move the sets around and all that, that I guess their contract is going to be coming up, I think, at the end of July. So there could be another strike coming. And yeah, so it's probably going to get worse for Hollywood instead of getting better. While he expressed confidence in AI's role in reducing production costs, he also recognized the necessity of aligning with creative professionals to ensure that the technology is used responsibly, whatever that means. Quote, the agreements that came out of last year's strikes and the agreements that came out of the IATSE and Teamsters negotiations will define roughly what we can do with AI, unquote, at least until that contract is up, which I believe those contracts were only for 3 years. So in 3 years, they'll be doing this all again. Or actually, it'll be more like 2 years at this point. This collaboration is crucial to maintaining the balance between technological advancement and the creative integrity of the film industry. Creative integrity of the film industry. Yeah, tell me another one. The creative integrity of the film industry while we grab another Spider-Man villain off the shelf and try and turn it into a franchise that no one wants to freaking see. What a laugh. In addition to discussing AI, he touched on Sony's broader strategic investments. It reiterated that SPE's focus remains on enhancing its IP portfolio and producing more content to license. This strategy has proven successful, and he indicated that Sony would not deviate from this path. We are not going to go outside the strategy that has been enormously successful for us over the last several years, he asserted. I mean, really, has it been that successful? I mean, I guess it has. They've got Spider-Man, but really, aside from Spider-Man, what big success have they had? I don't know. They probably had one, but I can't think of one. The statement also subtly addressed ongoing speculation about potential acquisitions, such as Paramount, suggesting that any future investments would align with Sony's current strategic goals. One area where he sees significant potential for AI is in anime production through Sony's subsidiary Crunchyroll. Quote, Crunchyroll is going to be our primary driver of growth at SPE over the next few years, he said. By leveraging AI, Sony aims to enhance the quality and efficiency of anime production, further solidifying its position in the lucrative anime market. Sony Pictures Entertainment's CEO is championing the use of AI to revolutionize film production, aiming to cut costs and increase efficiency. While this move promises significant benefits, it also necessitates careful collaboration with Hollywood's creative professionals to navigate potential conflicts. with a steadfast focus on its successful IP centric strategy and promising growth prospects in anime through Crunchyroll. Sony is poised to leverage AI to its fullest potential while maintaining a balanced approach to innovation and creativity. In other words, if you're a manual laborer of any kind at Sony, get ready because they're going to be getting rid of you here in the not too distant future, or an animator for that matter. Okay, 740. All right, I'll do one or two more here, and then I'll wrap it up. And this was an interesting story that popped up this week. So Evangeline Lily, the actress, said she is stepping away from acting, and this is from Variety, by the way. Stepping away from acting and quote might return to Hollywood one day unquote. I am happy. Evangeline Lily, ugh, Evangeline Lilly announced on Instagram that she has stepped away from Hollywood for the foreseeable future and might return one day. Lilly, best known for playing Kate Austen in ABC's drama series Lost, reshared a video recorded in 2006 and which she expressed her desire to be a retired actress by the next decade. 10 years from now, where would I like to be? I'm terrified to admit this to the rest of the acting world, but ideally 10 years from now, I'd like to be a retired actress and have a family, unquote, Lily said in the video. I'd like to be writing and influencing people's lives in humanitarian ways. In her caption to the video posted June 3rd, 2024, Lily writes, I'm so filled with joy and contentment today as I live out my vision. Praise God, I feel so grateful for my blessings. Stepping away from what seems like the obvious choice, wealth and fame, can feel scary at times, but stepping into your dharma replaces the fear with fulfillment. I might return to Hollywood one day, but for now, this is where I belong. A new season has arrived. I am ready and I am happy, she concluded. Lily starred as Kate Bishop in all 6 seasons of Lost, which ran from 2004 to 2010. Her performance earned her a nomination for the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Drama Series. She's also known for playing Hope Van Dyne / Wasp in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, debuting as the character in 2015's Ant-Man and reprising her role in 2018's Ant-Man and the Wasp, 2019's Avengers Endgame, and 2023's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Lily also played Tariel in Peter Jackson's The Hobbit trilogy, appearing in the latter two films: The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug, and Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. And when I remember distinctly when I saw her on Lost, which when did that come out? Like 2005, 2004, somewhere around there, I think was when that premiered. Um, when that came out, and I remember distinctly when I saw her thinking she'd make a good elf. I thought she had a very elf-like face and thinking she'd make a good elf character. So I was kind of jazzed when they cast her in the Hobbit films, even though, of course, her character is not in the books and was clearly just inserted in to appeal to, females and, create this very belabored love story between her and what was it, Keeley or whatever it was. Last year, Lily revealed on the Happy Sad Confused podcast that she once turned down Hugh Jackman's offer to join the X-Men franchise and Joss Whedon's offer to play Wonder Woman. The X-Men offer came in during the making of 2011's Real Steel, which starred Jackman and Lily. At that point, Lily was fresh off wrapping up Lost, and Jackman had 4 X-Men movies under his belt. Hugh was like, hey, so the X-Men guys are asking me if I would approach you because they know you won't talk to anybody. They knew I was working with you and were interested to know if it would ever interest you to do an X-Men thing. And Lily said, I was like, no, it doesn't interest me. And, I'm wondering what they would have cast her as. And I guess it would have been Jean Grey, wouldn't it? Probably. But I mean, if it's in 2011, I mean, they already, because the original films already had Famke Janssen to play Jean Grey, and the reboot films, with Days of Future Past, or with X-Men First Class, and going forward from there, those they were much younger. Would have been she would have been too old for that. So maybe it was somebody else. I don't know. Whedon had previously offered her the role of Wonder Woman in a movie that never got off the ground. The lost actor met with Whedon but said, "I think my impression coming away from it was I had no desire and he could tell. It didn't appeal to me, and there was nothing about the meeting that like jazzed me or made me think like, oh, I've got to do this. Nothing clicked, nothing felt good," Lily continued. "I'm way too authentic for my own good." Okay, way to pat yourself on the back there. I mean, it's not good. If I am not impressed, you'll know, and maybe you shouldn't know sometimes. Well, anyway, I mean, good for her, I guess. I wish her luck. But all of she says, "I might come back to Hollywood at some point." I mean, what does that mean? Basically, when they offer me enough money, is that it? Okay, I'll do one more here, right quick, and we'll wrap this up. And this is from GamesRadar.com. Deadpool 3 director eyed to helm next Avengers movie, which may see 60 returning superheroes. Deadpool and Wolverine director Sean, I guess it's Levy. Oh, yeah, I'm going to go with Levy. Sean Levy is reportedly leading the pack of directors Marvel Studios designed to take the reins of the fifth Avengers movie, according to Deadline. The film, previously titled Avengers Kang Dynasty, has been without a director, or a title for that matter, since the departure of Shang-Chi director Destin Daniel Cretton from the project in late 2023. Levy's involvement in the film isn't confirmed, with Deadline reporting that Marvel is also eyeing several other directors while they wait for an answer. But perhaps just as interesting in the trade's reporting is that whether Levy joins the film or not, Marvel seems to be taking Avengers 5 in a whole new direction. Previously billed as Avengers Kang Dynasty, the ousting of Kang actor Jonathan Majors from the MCU due to his criminal convictions has led to ongoing rumors that the studio would drop Kang entirely rather than recasting. Now it seems that Avengers 5 would bring back up to 60 Marvel heroes to share billing on screen, including Mark Ruffalo, Chris Hemsworth, Benedict Cumberbatch, Tom Hiddleston, Simu Liu, Karen Gillian, and more. Though no retired Avengers such as Chris Evans's Steve Rogers or Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow were name checked by Deadline as returning, there's always a chance. That seems like one heck of a lot of characters for one film, potentially roping in all manner of Marvel characters from the Fox films, the Netflix shows, and more. And with Secret Wars still apparently the plan for Avengers 6, it begs the question what Marvel could do to top a massive ensemble like that. Is it possible they'd split Secret Wars into two films to give everything room to breathe? We'll have to wait and see. And in the meantime, July's Deadpool and Wolverine will be here before long to show exactly what Levy is capable of when he's given the keys to the MCU. So, who knows how this will go, but I would imagine that this has been prompted partly because he's doing Deadpool and Wolverine, which is already a movie, a big tentpole film that is packed full of characters. I mean, I don't know how many there are, but certainly more than a typical film, a typical superhero film. And I guess they're pleased enough with what he's doing that they decided he would be a good choice for this, which, having not seen the film yet, I can't say, but, we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I want to thank those who tuned in to watch the stream and those who will catch it on a rewatch. Please do like this stream while you're here, and also please do sub to the channel and maybe check out some of my other videos while you're here. Actually, speaking of AI, I just released a AI trailer on my channel yesterday. It's a AI trailer for Thundar the Barbarian. the old cartoon from the early 80s. And it's basically kind of a teaser. It's about a minute long, but I'm going to do a full, probably 2-minute trailer in the coming weeks. And hopefully you will check that out as well. And I will also be back streaming Tuesday night. I'll be doing my Trek Talk stream as usual. I'll be covering the episode, um, what is it? The Galileo 13 for the original Star Trek episodes. And until then, I guess I will see you and have a good night.